In this video, I'm going to show you an incredibly practical invoice parsing automation that will be able to take any amount of PDFs and parse and extract the data from those and add them as new rows into a Google Sheet. We also have a second automation that will watch for emails within your account and automatically grab the invoice PDFs from emails and add them to this folder. And those will then be picked up by this automation automatically. We're using invoice parsing technology in addition to OpenAI's GPT-4o to help to really refine the output and get it in the correct format. Because invoices can be in all sorts of different formats, and we may need to infer certain data from those invoices. From there, it's really easy then to create pivot tables, so you can then create reports based on those invoices, such as you can sum up everything based on your vendor name or the vendor country. Then you can use Google Sheets internal functions like convert currencies and whatever else you want. I'm going to go through this entire process, but just one explanation of why there are two separate routes here. And this is because we want to be able to handle both machine-readable PDFs and scanned PDFs. For example, in this sample invoice, this is a PDF which has been exported, and you can actually click and drag and copy out some of that data. This is a machine-readable PDF. However, let's say we have an invoice like this, which is not machine-readable. So it could have been printed and scanned, and you cannot select that data. We need to use a vision model to be able to pick this up. And that's what we're doing in the second flow here. And if you want to import this blueprint into your own Make.com account, then check out the link in the description to our community. We'll get access to all of our automation templates, including the one in this video. Let's start from the very start. I have a blank Make.com scenario, which I've called Invoice Parsing. This is going to be looking out for PDFs within this Google Drive and then process those and then add them to this spreadsheet. Then after that, I have this other blank scenario, which is to process emails with invoices. And this is where we're going to be looking out for emails within this email account, either which contain invoice in the email, and in other cases, we can manually add a label to the emails so that they also get picked up in the automation. And we'll do that after, because the core of the automation is within this invoice parsing. After this processing emails is just a way to make the process more efficient. We have quite a mix of invoices that we're going to be processing here, between PDFs that have readable text like so, and these ones that are more like scanned images. We're using sample data for these invoices, but they are in the same format as real invoices. First off, we're going to select Google Drive and then watch files in a folder. We're going to watch files by created time. So this is going to watch out for just new PDFs within this. So choose a drive. So I've selected my folder, select all files type to watch. And for now, I'm just going to limit it to one file at a time. And I'm going to right click, choose where to start. I'm going to select all, which means that we're going to pick up everything that was previously added to this. Okay, so I'll press run once, and that has picked up this first PDF, which is good. Next up, we want to download that file. So I'll go to Google Drive, download a file, and then just enter manually. File ID is this file ID, as you can see up here, which is good, and press OK. I'll press OK, and I'll press run once again, and that should download this file, which is good. Next up, we need to use an invoice parsing service that can process those invoices. There are lots of different services that you could use for this, but we're going to use pdf.co. It's really easy to integrate with Make.com, and it will work within a few minutes. You can start with a month free trial for that. And we're not sponsored by them in any way, but it's very easy to integrate this with Make.com. You can also use other services such as mindy.com, which gives you 250 pages free per month. There's no official Make.com app for this. There is a community one, which I believe you have to pay for. So other than that, you would need to use the HTTP module and use webhooks. So it's a little bit more complicated. We're going to go with this pdf.co process for this, but the same kind of logic of processing the fields will apply to lots of other solutions. In order to try and be consistent with our testing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder, and I've just written other invoices. I'm going to move most of the invoices, all of these invoices, to this folder. And then from then on, whenever we're testing this, we'll be testing it with the exact same PDF every time. Then after that, we'll move on to the other ones. All right, so next up, I want to update this Google Sheet with the data from pdf.co. After that, we're going to add another step, which is to use AI to try and add extra information to this beyond what this pdf.co is providing. So Google Sheets, I'm going to add a row. Okay, so I've selected this invoices accounts payable spreadsheet. Sheet name is sheet 1. Table contains headers, yes. And all right, so if we go to invoice, select invoice number there. Invoice date is this. Vendor name, I'm going to scroll down to vendor address. So vendor street address, add a comma, and I'm going to select city after that. country is here. We do not have postal code. I'm just going to add it to the vendor address as well. Contact information, phone, email. Then from there, we're just getting the tax amount, total, due date, which is here. We'll zoom in a bit more. Currency we do not have from here. We do not have tax rate or tax type from this. I'll press OK, press save, and I'll just run this again. So it's going to take that document. It's going to go through and parse the data from that. Perfect, looking good. I'll just clean this up a little bit. I'll select this box up here, unbold it, then select this first row and then bold that. So we have the invoice number, date. We have some information missing, but we have plenty to work with for the moment. When it's been processed, I want to move that PDF to the process folder. So I'll go move a file folder, select the invoices and then the processed folder. And then the file ID should be the file ID it picked up at the very start of the process. Click OK. So select OK. Looking good. Save. That should work. I'm going to manually move this to process for the moment. For the next invoice that we try, I'm going to test to make sure that that move works. I'm going to right click and choose where to start. I'll select all because we want it to process and select run once. Okay, it's picked up the file, downloaded the file. Now it's going to go through and process that and we'll just wait for the result. Okay, so this data is pretty good, but it's not in the exact structure that we want. For example, we have currency signs here. We don't have the tax rate or tax type, and we don't have a country. I'm going to now call OpenAI, pass through some of the data from this, and then further enhance the results that we're getting here. So I'm going to add a module in between here. I'm going to select OpenAI. I'm going to create a chat completion prompt. I'm going to use GPT-4o latest. If you really want to get the best results, you can use the O1 models, which have chain of thought built in. So you can add that in as well. For the GPT-4o models, you add in a system role to give it context to what you do. You do not do that for the O1 models. So I've gone to ChatGPT and actually asked it to come up with a good prompt to use here. And it's come up with this pretty good example prompt, which is extract the structure of the following data in JSON format. The system role is your data extraction assistant designed to process and structure data. That's enough as a system role, I think, to start with. Next, we add a message. Select user, and this is where we're going to provide a lot more information. So we're going to be explicitly providing some of the data from pdf.co, and then the rest they may need to infer. Currency, infer based on monitor symbols or context. We also want a notes output. Add any additional text here if you are unsure of the answers you provided. Let's just see how that goes. So we have Ireland, currency, EUR, subtotal. We also want to get dates as well. So we have invoice date and due date. We want to get those responded as well. And let's just say we want to get it to respond in this exact date time format. You can change it to whatever format you want, of course. I'm going to select due date, date 12/12. Okay, this is the correct format. And that should be enough for now. So we're based on OCR text below. Okay, I'm going to copy this directly into my prompt within here. I'm going to add another module of transform to JSON. I'm going to pass in the entire body of this message back into JSON. And then the OCR text will be, I'm going to press save anyway, go down to here. Then under this OCR text, I'm going to actually refresh the page entirely here. Make sure to press save before doing that because that JSON, the transform to JSON did not show up for me. Okay, JSON string. Perfect. Now let us provide, so this is the example output we really want for this. We're going to explicitly provide certain values. We have tax, we have total, and we have subtotal. Invoice date is this, and the due date is under payment. It's that due date. So if data is not provided or not inferred, then respond with the data field, but value should be an empty string. Okay, so then when we wanted to infer the country, the currency for country, okay, we're going to leave that as it is. We could just pass in all of the data in OCR form in here and not provide this detail. I'm just doing this to try to minimize hallucinations a little bit. So currency, country, tax rate. So the tax rate should be percentage. So only provide this if the percentage has been included within the document. And OCR string, and I'll press OK, press save. And from there, we're going to unlink this for the moment and just let it run through that. We're going to bring this invoice back out again and let it parse through this again. So run once. So I'm going to choose where to start all, click run once. Okay, let's have a look at the data that we got The result is a long string. Country, Ireland, invoice J. Right, this is looking pretty good. That got almost everything, I believe. 1150, 265, 14. Yeah, that's pretty good. The tax type is VAT. Looks pretty good. And currency is looking good too. Right, I'm happy enough with this. There's one other thing we need to do, which is to go down to the very bottom, go to show advanced settings, and to change this to JSON response. We want to do that. But also I noticed that it is not actually picking up the tax rate. So we'll go back to the user, percentage VAT or tax rate. So that should be included within the document. Press OK, press save, and we will run that again. Run once. Okay, it's picking up the file from Google Drive again. All right, that is processed. Let's look at the result. Country, invoice date, due date, currency. Right, everything's looking good. Again, we do not have the tax rate. I'm going to update the prompt to call this tax percentage. Let's be a little bit less prescriptive on this and just say percentage VAT or tax rate. And it should get that from the document. We totally could calculate this based on the subtotal and tax, but I'm just trying to get the information that's been included within the invoice here. Okay, finally we have currency, which we forgot to select there. And I think we now have everything populated. We should. Okay, that looks good. You might be wondering why I'm using a combination of PDF.co, Logic, and OpenAI. And that is just that you could feed the entire feed into OpenAI. I'm just taking the response of PDF.co. And if that's giving us a good response for certain data items, then I'm happy to use those and then try and use OpenAI's GPT-4o directly to try and infer other data from that. You could, of course, just feed the entire thing into OpenAI and come up with that. I'm happy to use a combination of both here. So I'll press OK. Now we still have this within this folder. So I'm going to choose where to start, select all, and I'm going to now click run once and get it to try and do this process end to end of getting the file and then updating the row and then moving that to the other folder. That's been processed. Now we have much cleaner data. We have the invoice number, the date in that format. The due date is empty with currency, EUR, subtotal, tax total. Okay, there we go. That looks pretty good. I'm going to now take all of the other invoices and try and process every single one of those going through this exact system. Okay, now I'm going to choose where to start, select all, and then press run once. Okay, we processed the next invoice, 8835. The due date and invoice number are looking okay there. And yeah, that's good. We're going to just process the rest. Go down to limit here, limit of 10. Click OK, run once. Then this will just go through and process all of the remaining ones within this. So there will be 5 more to process. Okay, we've now created a few more of these. So let's have a quick look through. Go to this processed field. Okay, the second one there. So this one here is a Belgian one and vendor name looks okay. Invoice number is correct. 1815. Yeah, and this is a good example of where this works nicely. So this comma delimiter is what they use in Germany, and we have the euro sign. And here we have a decimal place instead. So that's pretty good. We have the taxable amount as that and 21% VAT. Okay, let's go through the next one. Just make invoice. Vendor address is looking good there. We have the correct date. Vendor name is correct. Again, yeah, subtotal, total, tax amount. Yeah, all good. And it writes a note here. Currency is listed as USD, which conflicts with the customer's billing country, but that's fine. So that's okay. Right. I like the fact that we have lots of notes here to review just to check the rationale, just to see if there are any issues. You can go back to this prompt and then get OpenAI to be not as verbose in its responses. But I like having this because then you can have a human in the loop to kind of clean these things up, because the results from these are often not perfect. Okay, we've gone through and processed all of those documents. There is an issue that in these last 2 documents, they're actually scanned PDFs. Even though they are a PDF, I cannot select the text, whereas I can select the text for these ones, for example. And this poses a kind of a unique challenge here because this PDF.co is not responding with anything. Now, what I'm going to do in this case is check to see if the body response is empty. And if it is, that means that PDF.co is not processing it. And then we'll feed this to OpenAI's Vision API to then try and get it to extract the relevant data from that. So let's get it to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to add a router here. We're going to add a new section here. So if condition, if body exists, okay? And if there's no response, I'm just going to set this route as the fallback option. So that means if it does not go pass through this, it will pass through that. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select OpenAI and then create a completion prompt, then feed in that PDF image. Okay, it's just hit me that we're working with PDFs and this OpenAI Vision mode of the API only works with image files. So we're going to need to convert the PDF to an image file first. Press OK. I'm going to add in a new module here. There are a bunch of different services we could use to convert from PDF into images. But in this case, we're just going to use this pdf.co again to do that. We're going to pass in the data. Then we'll convert PDF to PNG. And we're going to just use the first page. Then an export type will be to download the file. And then from there, we're going to path that into OpenAI. So the image file will be the convert from PDF into images, which is OK. Press OK for the moment. Okay, I'm going to go back to OpenAI again here and create a prompt for GPT-4o where I will pass it an image and it will attempt to extract data from the invoice. We'll pass in an image of an invoice and we'll attempt it in the image. Respond. I want it to respond in JSON format. Here is an example of the data. And then we're going to pass in an example of data like so. Within the prompt, provide the expected and with example. Okay, then it's going to create a prompt for us. Okay, now it's going to provide some information for the prompt to give some more examples of what format we want and examples and so on. Okay, this is pretty good. It's what we're looking for here. And it's mentioned about null. I'm going to copy this into Notepad here and return an empty string for that field. So if the information is missing or unclear, return an empty string for that field and populate JSON with the extracted data. If the data is not explicitly, use an empty string. Right, this is pretty good, I think. Now we're going to go back into text content. This is the system role. So that gives total context of what we wanted to do. And then within the user role here, just going to ask it to extract from the provided image, pdf.co. Now, finally, last few things here, show advanced settings, response format is JSON object, and very much parse the JSON response. Now we need to go back to here. We're going to need to bring one of these printed PDFs, so the scanned PDFs, back in. And we'll press choose where to start, all, and now run once. Now it's going to go through this pdf.co, and if it does not read from this, that has processed. The response was actually empty, but it actually went through this process. I realized that this body, in this case, it actually does exist, but it's a collection. So what we need to do is go to body and go all the way down to array length greater than 0. There was no response from pdf.co, so now it went down back to this fallback route, which is this. And let's have a look at the result from here. That's not a bad response from OpenAI here. The tax subtotal, all of that is looking pretty good. The invoice number is correct. So even though we have a pretty pixelated invoice here, it picked those up pretty well. You know, technically you could put all of your invoices through this process and just completely ignore what you're getting from pdf.co in terms of its structured data. But if you can get structured data from your PDF, it's better to do so in general. Right, so now we're going to clone these two modules, press copy and press paste there. Looks good. And now we're going to just populate the values that we got from OpenAI because we got it in structured JSON output. So we can select the invoice number, the invoice date, due date, vendor name, currency, subtotal, tax total, tax rate, tax type, vendor address, vendor country, vendor email, vendor phone, and notes. So, okay, and this should continue to move that to the process folder. Excellent. Now we're going to start from the start again. Choose where to start, select all, click run once. Okay, so that's worked. Let's have a look at that. Excellent. So now we have populated data from that, which looks pretty good. Excellent. Now I'm just going to delete the rows that were not relevant there. And I'm going to delete the first two rows here as well. So this is looking pretty good. Now we can handle machine-readable PDF files and image files. This process is only going to work for PDFs. But now that we're actually reading images, you could create a separate route here, which is to check the file type of the attachment. And then have a separate route down here, which then goes through this. So we're not using the PDF functionality at all, and then we're just using the vision capability of OpenAI. I'm not going to do that for now, but you can effectively just copy the logic that we're doing here and just have an extra router here, and then that will perform the same function. So this is in pretty good shape. We have a lot of the data we need. You can customize this however way you want. Now I'm finally going to very simply create a watch emails trigger within a new scenario within make.com, which is going to look out for new emails that contain the word invoice or where we've assigned the label invoice to it. It will automatically pick up emails that have the word invoice in it. If not, you can look through your emails and then manually add that label to your emails. So I'm going to go and select Gmail and watch email. Going to choose a folder. going to select where these are in the inbox, and I'm going to use a Gmail filter. I have a filter within Gmail here, which is it's going to automatically pick up either emails that have the word invoice in them, or where you've gone through the emails and manually added invoice as the label for that. And it's also only going to pick up emails that have an attachment, so has attachment. Those Gmail filters are really useful if you want to use Gmail in an advanced way. And then the maximum number of results for now, we can select 1. And I'm going to mark email messages as read when fetched, which is yes. The invoices will come into your Gmail inbox and then read those, take the attachments, and then mark the emails as read. So that means that you don't really need to worry about them. You can, of course, mark that as yes or no. By the way, this entire process is not mandatory for this automation. We already have this entire invoice parsing system. If you or a client want to just use that by itself, you can just drag and drop all of your invoices into this folder, and then away you go. This extra automation we have here is just to make things even more efficient. So I'll press OK, and then I'm going to only process emails from now on. So I'm about to send an email to this mailbox, and it's going to watch emails. And from there, I'm going to get it to iterate through the list of attachments. I'm going to select attachments, and then I'm going to select Google Drive, upload a file to Google Drive, then select my connection, invoice processing, invoices, so that new attachments should be dropped straight into this folder now. I'm going to select map, and that should map as we need already. Press save. I'm going to select run once. Now it's picked up that email. It's saved the email to this, which is looking good. Now we're going to go back to this and run that automation. So that took almost no time at all to set up that automation right there. And you can just have this running on a schedule. Then after that, have this also running on a schedule, and then get this to just pick up your invoices throughout the day. So you can get it to run possibly multiple times at regular intervals. Okay, so we now have a row here, but I've realized that this route actually did not work. That was machine readable text. I realize this filter condition is not correct. This is a collection, and I've asked it to check if the array length is greater than that. So in order to get around that problem, we have a body response. When there's a response, we have this collection, and otherwise it's an empty collection. So what we could do is to convert it to an array, because we were checking to see here if array length is greater than 0. So let's go with that. Click save, we'll go again, choose where to start, select all, click run once. So this time, because the filter is now fixed, then it's actually going to go through the correct flow, which is to go to this. So that body is greater than 0, which is good. And that looks good. Excellent. So now we have our completed line here. So this first attempt at this was using this vision flow. The second attempt was using the flow where we're getting the structured information via pdf.co. As you see here, we're getting a slightly better result when we use the invoice parsing option than if we're using this. Finally, just to triple check that the printed version is working here, I'll go back and I'll just check that again. Choose where to start, select all, click run once. Excellent, so that's working correctly. There was no response because it was not a machine readable PDF, so that has gone through this route, and now it's going through the vision model and should work from there. Excellent, so there we go. There's plenty of other things you can do with this, by the way. For example, you could select all of these and then insert a pivot table into a new sheet, some of the subtotals for each vendor name. Of course, in this case, we have multiple currencies. For example, you could use the Google Finance function here and get it to convert the currencies to your base currency. So let's say your base currency is dollars, then you could get it to do that by itself. And then within this pivot table, you could then use that converted currency within your pivot table, and then you have a pretty good report. And then every time you update this document, then this pivot table gets updated. You can include lots of different things there. Let's select all of the data here within this, and then go to insert, and then select pivot table, new sheet. For example, you could select vendor country in the columns, and the sum of total for each vendor country, which is that. So almost everything here is in the US. Of course, again, keep in mind what I was saying there about converting base currencies if you're dealing with lots of different currencies, of course. Finally, just to clean two things up, this was a live build throughout this process. So after recording, I just did two separate things, which is to add this filter after the iterator when processing emails, so that it will only pick up PDF files. In some cases, there might be PDFs and JPEGs and all sorts of other files. So add that in so it'll only move PDF invoices to Google Drive. If you're also separately updating the automation to process images, then you can update that filter as well. Secondly, I've added a document type field to the spreadsheet. The reason for this is that you will often get invoices and receipts sent to you separately in the same email, and this update will try and figure out if it's an invoice or if it's a receipt or another type of accounting document. I've simply updated the prompt here to get OpenAI to infer the document type from the document, and then I added it to the Google Sheets, like so. If PDF Co could not parse it, then when we're going down through this route, we do the same thing. We're just also getting it to figure out the document type, and then we've also passed that into the example data. That means that when you're in this document type here, you can add in a filter. So data, create a filter, and then filter out any documents that are not invoices, such as receipts, or you can manually review them and delete them. And by the way, if you want to import this blueprint into your own Make.com account, then check out the link in the description to our community. We'll get access to all of our automation templates, including the ones in this video. You can also get your questions answered via our active community or via your weekly events where you can talk to us in real time.